The cold in Siberia isn't just a number on a thermometer, it's a presence you feel before you even understand it. It enters through your eyes, your nose, your bones, and turns everything into something rigid, fragile, and dangerous. In extreme temperatures, the logic of everyday life stops working. Things that should be liquid turn solid in seconds, the air feels heavier when you breathe it, and every small movement must be carefully calculated. Here, the environment is not neutral, it's constantly testing you. In this place, even silence is different. Breath vapor freezes in midair, footsteps sound different on compacted snow, and any exposed metal surface becomes a trap for unprotected skin. The human body, so confident in other parts of the planet, is revealed here as fragile, dependent on layers, shelter, fire, and planning. This is not a place that allows for distraction. A simple mistake can turn into a serious problem within minutes. And yet, this is not an empty place. Amid this cold that seems hostile to life, there are cities, schools, markets, families, routines. People wake up early, go to work, raise children, do their shopping, and come home. Life doesn't just survive here, it organizes itself around the cold. And understanding how that's possible is the first step toward understanding why anyone would choose to stay in this place. When you look at Yakutsk from the outside, it seems like no one should want to be here. The cold is extreme, the distances are enormous, and everything appears to demand more effort than in any other place. And yet, hundreds of thousands of people call this region home. Not because it's easy, but because over time, life has shaped itself to fit the environment. Houses have been adapted, habits have changed, routines have been reinvented. What seems hostile to a visitor is simply normal for those who live here. There's also a practical factor. This is a land rich in natural resources. Beneath the ice, Siberia holds vast reserves of energy and minerals that power much of the country's economy. This draws in workers, engineers, drivers, and technicians who come here in search of better wages and opportunities they can't find elsewhere. It's a quiet trade-off, cold in exchange for stability, isolation in exchange for income, discomfort in exchange for a future. But it's not just about the economy. There are also roots, history, and a sense of belonging. Many were born here, raised here, and can't imagine living anywhere else. For them, the cold isn't an enemy, it's the constant backdrop of life. That's what keeps entire cities running in the middle of the ice, and that's what leads us now to the only road that connects this frozen world to the rest of the planet. To reach the heart of this frozen world, there is essentially only one way in. A long, narrow, and isolated road that cuts through thousands of kilometers of ice, tundra, and emptiness. On the map, it appears as a simple highway, but in practice, it's the thin line that separates connection from complete isolation. Without it, entire cities would be cut off from the rest of the country for most of the year. Locals call it the Road of Bones, and that name is not a metaphor. It was built during a dark period when the Soviet state sent political prisoners, intellectuals, and enemies of the regime to forced labor camps. They were forced to break the frozen ground with rudimentary tools, poorly fed, poorly clothed, and working in temperatures that can kill within hours. Many didn't survive. Cold, hunger, disease, and accidents claimed lives daily. There was no time, no means, and no interest in giving the dead a proper burial. The ground was too hard to dig, and the construction couldn't stop. The bodies were simply incorporated into the road itself, covered with stones and dirt, turning the path into an invisible cemetery. Today, cars and trucks drive over this past, seeing nothing but ice and asphalt. But the memory lives on, in the name, in oral tradition, and in the awareness of those who live here. Each kilometer carries not just distance, but also history, suffering, and silence. And beyond its symbolic weight, the road is still dangerous. In winter, a breakdown can be fatal. The cold enters the vehicle in minutes, the windows freeze from the inside, and the body loses heat rapidly. Here, traveling is never just about going from one place to another. It's always a small test of survival. And at the end of this road lies the region's main city, Yakutsk. At the end of the Road of Bones, Yakutsk appears. At first glance, it seems like an ordinary city trying to exist in an extraordinary place. Buildings, streets, shops, people in a hurry, buses passing by. It's all there, but wrapped in an atmosphere that makes it clear this is no ordinary place. For much of the winter, the city is covered by a thick, constant fog. It's not a natural mist, but a mix of human breath vapor, chimney smoke, and vehicle exhaust that simply can't disperse in the still, frozen air. The result is a white veil that limits visibility to just a few meters and transforms the city into a nearly ghostly scene. Walking through Yakutsk at this time of year feels like moving through a silent dream. Shapes become blurred, sounds are muffled, and the world feels smaller, more closed in, more intimate. It's as if you're not just walking through a city, but crossing into a different physical state where even the air obeys different rules. And still, Yakutsk is not the end of the line. For those who live here, there is something beyond, even more extreme, more isolated and colder. A place that completely redefines what we understand as winter, and that lies a few more days deeper into the frozen continent. If we travel even deeper into the Siberian interior, after days of driving along narrow roads surrounded only by snow and twisted trees, we arrive at a place where cold reaches another level, Oymyakon. This small village is known as the coldest permanently inhabited place on the planet. Here, thermometers have recorded temperatures that feel closer to another world than to Earth. In this environment, everything behaves differently. Ink in pens freezes, batteries drain within seconds when exposed to the air, and even ordinary objects become hazardous. Metal frame glasses can burn skin due to the extreme cold, and a single careless moment can leave lifelong marks. The air feels drier, harsher, almost hostile to human presence. And yet, life goes on. Children go to school, adults work, elders chat at their doorsteps, as long as the temperature doesn't drop below certain limits. For those who live here, there's a threshold where cold stops being an event and simply becomes the background of life. The extraordinary becomes normal. And despite everything, Oymyakon is not a dead place. Life doesn't just survive, it organizes itself around these extreme conditions. And it's not only humans who've learned to live here, the local wildlife carries, in their very bodies, the marks of this adaptation. If we travel even deeper into the Siberian interior, after days of driving along narrow roads surrounded only by snow and twisted trees, we arrive at a place where cold reaches another level, Oymyakon. This small village is known as the coldest permanently inhabited place on the planet. Here, thermometers have recorded temperatures that feel closer to another world than to Earth. In this environment, everything behaves differently. Ink in pens freezes, batteries drain within seconds when exposed to the air, and even ordinary objects become hazardous. Metal frame glasses can burn skin due to the extreme cold, and a single careless moment can leave lifelong marks. The air feels drier, harsher, almost hostile to human presence. And yet, life goes on. Children go to school, adults work, elders chat at their doorsteps, as long as the temperature doesn't drop below certain limits. For those who live here, there's a threshold where cold stops being an event and simply becomes the background of life. The extraordinary becomes normal. And despite everything, Oymyakon is not a dead place. Life doesn't just survive, it organizes itself around these extreme conditions. And it's not only humans who've learned to live here, the local wildlife carries, in their very bodies, the marks of this adaptation. While humans need layers of clothing, thick walls, and constant heating to survive here, some animals seem tailor-made for this frozen world. They don't just tolerate the cold, they operate in it. Their bodies are the result of thousands of years of quiet adaptation to the harshest conditions on Earth. The Yakut horse is one of the most impressive examples. Small, sturdy, and seemingly fragile, it spends the entire winter outdoors, even when temperatures drop to levels that would kill any other large animal. Its metabolism slows down, its coat becomes incredibly dense, and its body enters a kind of energy-saving mode that allows it to survive with minimal resources. These horses dig through snow with their hooves to reach the sparse, dry vegetation beneath the frozen surface. There are no stables, no special feed, no human shelter, only biological adaptation and persistence. Where machines fail, they continue. The region's reindeer also carry a remarkable secret. Their eyes change color with the seasons, adapting to the amount of available light. In summer, they better filter the excess brightness. In winter, they can see in what little light remains, detecting reflections invisible to the human eye. And where there are resilient prey, there are equally prepared predators. Siberian wolves patrol the tundra with wide paws that work like natural snowshoes. They don't hibernate, they don't retreat, and they don't avoid winter. For them, the cold isn't an obstacle. It's the perfect setting for the hunt. Keeping the body functioning in extreme temperatures requires a tremendous amount of energy. Here, the human body burns calories just to keep organs working and blood flowing. That's why nutrition in Siberia doesn't follow the same rules as in the rest of the world. What might be considered excess elsewhere is necessity here. The market in Yakutsk looks like something from another planet. Giant fish stacked like logs, chunks of meat displayed outdoors, and no freezers in sight because the city itself is a natural freezer. The cold preserves everything, sterilizes everything, and turns the street into the safest place to store food. One of the most traditional dishes is made of frozen raw fish, sliced into ultra-thin strips and eaten while still ice-cold. It might seem strange to outsiders, but once placed in the mouth, the high-fat content slowly melts and warms the body from within. It's food, medicine, and fuel all at once. Here, logic is reversed. Refrigerators aren't used to cool food. They're used to keep it from freezing too much. Many families simply hang bags of meat outside their windows, where the cold air preserves them for months. The atmosphere itself has become part of the kitchen, and that completely changes the relationship between people and their food. If food requires adaptation, water demands physical effort. In many Siberian villages, there's no plumbing. Pipes can't be buried in the frozen ground, and in more remote places, they simply don't exist. That means water doesn't come into homes, it has to be fetched. In winter, men go to the frozen rivers and cut large blocks of crystal-clear ice with chainsaws. These blocks are transported, stacked outside homes, and used over the course of weeks. Whenever someone needs water, they break off a piece of ice, bring it indoors, and wait for it to melt. Drinking water here literally means turning solid into liquid every single day. And then there's the matter of the bathroom. In many homes, there's no indoor toilet because waste can't be flushed away. That means that even on nights of minus 50 degrees Celsius, people have to go outside and walk through the snow to a small wooden outhouse. It's quick, uncomfortable, and dangerous to stay there too long, but that's just how life works in this place. Building a house in Siberia isn't just about putting up walls. It's a constant negotiation with the ground. Here, the soil isn't solid earth. It's a mix of ice and sediments frozen for thousands of years, called permafrost. It seems solid, but if it warms even slightly, it turns into unstable mud. That's why buildings don't touch the ground. They are elevated on concrete pillars as if floating. This separation prevents the heat from the building from melting the ice underneath, which would cause the structure to sink. It might look strange to outsiders, but it's absolutely necessary to keep the city from collapsing. The homes themselves function like thermal capsules. Double doors, triple pane windows, and insulation corridors all exist to keep cold air out and warm air in. You don't walk straight from the street into the living room. There's always an entry chamber, a small intermediate space where your body and the air need to adjust before entering further. Central heating is the backbone of urban life here. Hot water circulates through buildings day and night, coming from thermal power plants. If that flow stops, the system freezes, pipes burst, and the house quickly becomes uninhabitable. In case of failure, residents have only a few hours to fix the issue before everything turns to ice. This creates a different relationship with the home itself. A house isn't just a shelter. It's a living organism that needs to stay alive at all times. When the heat stops, life stops with it. And that quiet fragility helps explain why living here requires not just physical endurance, but constant awareness. If Siberia were a country, it would be one of the largest in the world by land area. Yet it's also one of the most sparsely populated regions on the planet. Millions of square kilometers are covered by forests, ice, and tundra, inhabited by a relatively small population scattered across isolated points. The distances are so vast that you can travel for days without encountering another person. In many villages, money loses some of its practical meaning. What truly matters are fuel, mechanical parts, food, and access to transportation. In places like this, the economy stops being abstract and becomes concrete, based on whatever allows people to survive. At the same time, This empty land holds immense wealth. Natural gas, oil, rare minerals, and diamonds come from here. These resources power much of the country's economy and attract workers to such inhospitable regions. The salaries are higher, but so is the cost of living. Almost everything must be brought in from far away, either by plane or by temporary ice roads. This makes every item more expensive, every food more precious, every comfort more rare. Living here is like residing in a showcase of natural riches while facing constant scarcity in daily life. So far, we've talked about how the cold affects the body, freezes objects, shapes houses, and dictates the economy. But there's a quieter, deeper impact that doesn't show up on thermometers, the effect of prolonged winter on the human mind. In many parts of Siberia, for weeks or even months, the sun barely rises above the horizon. The day becomes a constant twilight, a dim, gray light that neither warms nor truly illuminates. The body's natural rhythm is lost. Sleeping, waking, feeling hunger, having energy, all of it becomes confusing. Without enough sunlight, the body produces less vitamin D and less serotonin, substances directly linked to well-being. The result is a significant rise in seasonal depression, chronic fatigue, and deep emotional heaviness. It's not just sadness, it's a persistent sense of emotional weight. Isolation makes it worse. People spend more time indoors, social interactions decrease, and the streets grow quiet. The world shrinks to the size of a heated room. For some, that's peaceful. For others, it's suffocating. In this context, alcohol often becomes an easy, accessible escape. Not as a celebration, but as emotional anesthesia. It's a real social problem, fueled by darkness, boredom, and the absence of outside stimulation for long periods of the year. Curiously, it's in this harsh environment that one of humanity's strongest qualities shines brightest. When survival is difficult, cooperation stops being an abstract moral value and becomes a practical necessity. Here, no one survives alone for long. On the road, if a car is stopped on the shoulder, the next driver almost always stops too. Not out of kindness, but out of awareness. Tomorrow it could be you there, with a dead engine and the cold quickly creeping into the vehicle. Mutual help is a form of collective self-preservation. In the villages, people know each other, keep an eye on each other, and help silently. Someone who doesn't show up for a few days raises concern. A neighbor who has extra firewood shares it. A technical problem becomes everyone's problem. Indifference here can have fatal consequences. In this frozen world, selfishness isn't just frowned upon, it's dangerous. Survival in Siberia isn't a solo adventure, it's a shared effort. And this logic shapes not just behavior, but values. Siberia is not a place that tolerates distraction, arrogance, or carelessness. It demands daily respect, constant attention, and humility before nature. Here, humans do not dominate the environment. They negotiate with it, adapt to it, and learn every day their own limits. And maybe that's why this place teaches so much. It reveals just how physically fragile we are, but also how capable we are of reinventing ourselves, cooperating, and persisting. In the end, Siberia isn't just about cold, ice, and isolation. It's about resilience, belonging, and the strange beauty of continuing to exist under the most unlikely conditions. If this journey through extreme cold made you feel the world in a different way, know that this is just one of the many frontiers our planet hides. There are volcanoes that never sleep, deserts that resemble oceans, forests that breathe on their own, and abysses deeper than we can imagine. If you want to keep exploring these places where nature challenges everything we know, join the next expeditions. The journey is just beginning. Subscribe to the channel to discover more content like this, and I'll see you in the next video.